Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead. This is my porch time today. I'm always trying to come up with something really good to talk about, and there's been something I've been noticing quite a bit here lately is what in the world is going on today? And that's what I'm going to talk. That's what I'm going to title this: is what in the world is going on? I'm noticing a series of things and events taking place that are extremely unusual. As y'all know, on a lot of our channels and a lot of our live streams, we talk about weather-related issues. I keep records of the weather every day. I have for years. I have a book that has all my records in it, and I can go back and I can tell you on this day what happened, 2 or 3 years ago, and I can tell you what the weather was that day here at Deep South Homestead, and was it hot, was it humid, was it windy, was it cold, I can tell you all this stuff about that day. And because I do that, I know when things begin to change. And I would encourage y'all to do the same thing. Start you a journal. Start doing that. I'm noticing this year, yesterday, Wanda and I dug our second crop of sweet potatoes, which you'll see a video coming out about that. We have videos coming out about unusual things on the place here, as far as they're out of time. We have certain fruits on the place here that usually I used to bow hunt over in October, the second week in October. They're already turned, their colors, and that's highly unusual for me to see that, because that's how I used to plan all my deer hunts and everything, was based off of certain things getting ready in the woods at certain times. And I would be able to know where the deer were going to be, and I was very successful at my deer hunting. So as I begin to look at those things, I've noticed there is a definite change taking place. Now, is it something phenomenal? I don't know. I don't know about that. But what I do know is there's a lot of things taking place today, which makes me ask the question, what in the world is going on? Another, for instance, is we have a lot of different people that sub to our channel from different countries, and we get messages from different people from different countries, and they ask us, have y'all been notified yet to have a 72-hour or 3-day, one of them's 3-day, one of them's a 10-day stock up of food or water supply, because our government's telling us that something's coming. Now, here in the U.S., we hadn't been told anything that I'm aware of. Now, I did find one little thing that did allude to that. One lady that did allude to that on a little interview that she did. But, if so many other countries are telling their people, and I'm talking about, we've got people from Germany, from the Ukraine, from Russia, from Canada, all these different places that's telling their people, you need to get prepared. What are they telling their people to prepare for? I haven't been able to find anything yet that actually what they're telling their people is going to happen. I did listen to one guy who said that his country told them that what was going to happen to them would definitely be a ripple effect from the United States. Go figure. What is it? We haven't been told anything's going to happen. Wanda and I, we watch different channels We watch earthquake channels. We have channels that we watch that deals with solar flares and things like this. And there is a big scare right now because the sun has several places on it that is actually like a melting pot. If you would take a pot of water and as you sit there and watch it boil and bubble, there's places on the sun that's starting to do this abnormally, and they're beginning to shoot out these solar flares. Well, they haven't been big enough quite yet to affect the earth in any kind of way catastrophic, but they're saying that we're extremely close, that any moment one of these flares could come off there if it's big enough, and it could literally damage the earth in some kind of massive way. It could cause tidal waves, it could cause grid downs. They're talking about earthquakes because of some kind of, I don't understand it, it's over my head. I just know what they're talking about, and I find that to be extremely unusual right now. Some of the other things is, you know, as y'all know, we had Daniel from Arms Family here at our house a while back on the porch talking with us, and we did a little YouTube video about it. Well, Daniel put up a video here the other day that they had a pretty serious earthquake in Oklahoma. 5 point something on the Richter scale there. Now, there's no fault lines that I went back and looked. There's not really any major fault lines through there. They're saying that this has been brought on by fracking. Well, is that true? I don't know for a fact, but I know one thing: the earthquake happened. You know, so that's unusual. It happened in an unusual place. So what's going on? You know, a lot of people. I watch a lot of things that have to do with HAARP, and a lot of people are saying right now that HAARP's playing a real big part in all of this. Now, is that true? I don't know. You know, there's a lot of speculation that it's really tampering with the weather big time. Could it be? Maybe. You know, and I sit back and I'm looking at other things going on right now. You know, there's one particular channel that we watch that this guy puts up that when the solar flare, I mean, he has this stuff timed, and I think it's extremely fascinating to watch. He has this stuff timed that when a flare shoots off the sun, that when that takes place, simultaneously things on the earth happen. He shows how the earthquakes start setting off in a pattern around the world at the same time these solar flares take place, and it's amazing to watch. And after the earthquakes, then he shows weather patterns and how they start changing afterwards, and so I find that to be extremely unusual that all this stuff actually may tie together. Now, you know, those of us who live in Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, all of us, and I guess in any of your history books you've ever been to school, you've learned that there was a point in 1811 and 1812 that the worst earthquakes ever recorded in history happened in New Madrid, Missouri, up that area. They were 8 point, I think they were around, they started in December. They had the first one, I think, and then they had two other ones later right after that was actually worse than the one in December. It actually caused the land to start swelling, and actually doing what they call the Mississippi River actually flowed backwards and flooded in some areas and changed the landscape of the river. It actually created some lakes up around Arkansas and different places up in there where there wasn't lakes. It, you know, it destroyed towns and villages and stuff. Of course, things weren't as heavily populated then as they are now, but nevertheless, it happened. And you know, what if that happened now? You know, because it was so sparsely populated then, they only estimated that they knew of about 1,000 people that died, but they didn't know, because of the Native Americans that lived in the area, they had no records of them. They actually don't know exactly how many people died, but they estimated that they know 1,000 for sure. But stop to think right now. If that New Madrid fault went off again, and did that same exact thing again, what would it be like today? Now, I'm not a fearmonger. I don't go around trying to, I don't try to push fear off on people or anything like that, but I am a realist. I do sit back and I do look at things and I do ask the question, what if this was to happen today? Because there's nothing to say that it can't happen again. As a matter of fact, just 2 hours north of me in Jackson, Mississippi, in the last few years, we've already had 2 small earthquakes up there. They were only 2 point something. That's not that far from the New Madrid fault line, people. So what's going on? We hadn't had earthquakes there in 50 years that I know of, or at least I've never heard of them. And so, these earthquakes are starting to pop up in diverse places all over this country. And we hear all the time out here about Yellowstone, how that the magma underneath the volcano out there is actually getting larger and larger as days go by, and how that they're expecting at some point some kind of massive eruption that's way past due. And so, is this going to happen? There again, I don't know. But why is all of a sudden all this stuff coming up in the news? Well, there's a lot of things happening in this country that I think is biblically related. As I sit around, I think this is the first time, and I may get some flack from this one, I don't know. I think this is the first time I can remember in American history, or in my lifetime, let me put it that way, in my lifetime, that we really don't have a solid candidate for president. And that's what I'm hearing from everybody, is they don't know how to vote. They don't know what they're going to do. It's people are saying it's a choose the lesser of the 2 evils type of situation. Now, what kind of an election is that, where you have to choose the lesser of the 2 evils? It's just ludicrous that we don't have anybody. People are freaking out if Hillary goes in. They're freaking out if Donald Trump goes in. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that it don't look good, I can tell you that. But whatever is. We're going to have to deal with whichever way it goes. And I know that it may not be the best situation in the world, but as far as I'm concerned right now, America is still the greatest country in the world to live in. And I don't plan on going nowhere else in the world unless God really tells me I've got to. I don't plan on it. I plan on staying right here. And regardless of what happens, I'm pretty sure that God's going to take care of me and Wanda. And He's going to make a way for us in this world. And He's going to make a way for y'all. If your relationship with Him is what it needs to be, then He's going to take care of you. Just like He did the children of Israel when they were in Egypt. He took care of them when all the plagues and everything was going on. And I believe God will do the same for us. Now there's some verses in the Bible I think that may tie into what we're experiencing right now. And I know where this is going to end up at before I ever do it. That's one of the sad things about having a melancholic temperament. I usually see the end before the beginning ever starts. Because this has happened since Christ's time, and it's happened periodically through history. But Matthew 24 has a lot to say about this. And does it actually tie in with what's happening today? I think it could. There's some things that are taking place now that wasn't in place then. Back then, Israel was not a nation and all this kind of stuff. So, the Bible plainly teaches that Israel had to be a nation before the end can take place and all this kind of stuff. So, and I'm not trying to say it's the end of the world, so don't get all up in arms about that, you know. I think about Matthew 24 verses, I think it's 6 through 8, somewhere in that area, that the Lord talks about as he's talking to the disciples after he's left, you know, the mountain, come down, and he tells them that there's going to be wars. There's going to be rumors of wars. Nation's going to rise against nation. Kingdom against kingdom. There's going to be famines. There's going to be pestilences. He gives a whole list of things there that's going to take place. Now, could this be the beginning of the sorrows that's spoken of in Matthew 24? I have no idea. But I can tell you, it sure is pointing in that direction, looks like. And you know, in Matthew 24 and I think it's 10, verse 10, it talks about many people will be offended after these things begin to happen, and that a lot of people will betray one another. Then it goes on to talk about in the verses after that about the love of a lot of people will wax cold because of this. And after listening to what a lot of y'all made comments on one of my porch times about where have all the good neighbors gone, y'all, a lot of you made comments about, well, I've tried to be a neighbor, but my neighbors don't want me bothering them. They don't want to be bothered. So, has the love of people started waxing cold already? Is this the beginning of things that we're seeing happen here? You know, I guess that's why the question I ask, what in the world is going on? Oil prices have dropped drastically low. Of course, I know why they have. I mean, I've looked into all that, you know, and I know Russia's all upset because we're doing that, and, you know, because it's knocking their feet out from under their economy, because oil's a big export for them, and you know, as long as we keep oil low, they lose money. I mean, it's really it's a war game over oil, most of it, but there's a lot of things starting to take place in this old world, and I think that that's where the homesteading is going to really kick off, and it's going to become really popular. Is because there are those of us like me and many of y'all that's watching here today that realizes there is something going on, and you keep asking yourself the question, what in the world is going on? Many of you have made the comment just like me, I can't put my finger on it. I know there's something going on, I just can't put my finger on it. And that's where the question, what in the world is going on, is coming from. Because I've had people on top of people come to me and say, Danny, what in the world is going on? What's happening? And friends, I don't know what's happening. I know that things are getting bad. I don't worry about myself. I've pretty much lived most of my life. I've had a good life. I've been able to buy, purchase, and own, had good jobs and things like that. But my friend, what I worry about is for you new homesteaders. Your children, my children, our grandchildren. Those are the things I worry about. I know I can't change it, but my heart is really sad because I know that my grandson may not have the opportunity to actually go out and get a job that he just truly wants and earn the kind of living he wants, and to be able to purchase land or to purchase a home at a reasonable price, because I imagine by that time there's going to be so many rules and so many regulations and so many whatevers that it's going to be so difficult for him to be able to get out and do anything, or any of my grandkids. I got like 20 something of them. It's going to be difficult for any of those to get out and do anything that their grandfather was able to do. And that makes me sad. Friends, that's why I tell y'all, so many people is talking about getting tiny houses and trying to just get small pieces of property and stuff like that. why don't you pass it forward and think about your families? That's what I've tried to do. I mean, at one point I owned a bunch of land, and I regret actually selling a lot of it to get out of debt, but I felt like getting out of debt was one of the most important things I could do, and I did sell. Now I still own 10 acres, which is not near enough to do what I need to do here to survive. But, you know, stop and think about your offspring. Think about your children. Think about your grandchildren. In your lifetime, right now, you have the opportunity to make a difference for them. Ask yourself the question, what in the world is going on? And how can I make a difference for my family, my children and my grandchildren? Does living in a smaller home and buying more land so that whenever they get to be of age, you have property to bless them with, does that mean anything to you? Because it sure does to me. You know, I've quit thinking about what Danny wants in life, and I've started thinking about what would be best for my family. Because should something happen and my kids can't pay the bills where they live at, then I want to have enough land that they can come where I'm at if they need to, and to be able to live on a place and be able to survive here and not have to sit in the cities where they live at and starve to death. And I think these are things that many of y'all have sent me messages, and many of y'all are thinking on the same page that I'm on right now, and a lot of that's what's got me to thinking. You know, I really have enjoyed Patera's videos about trying to survive off of what she has stored up, not using any more electricity than necessary, cooking outdoors, cooking on the old wood heater, cooking on a cowboy camp stove type situation there, using the grill, using whatever she has available. And I know we try to do organic as much as possible. I try to do organic. I try to live organically. But my friend, I'm just going to be honest with you, when those days come, we're just going to survive. And I think that's what Patera was trying to put out in her video, is sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And you know, and she did a fantastic job doing that. So I guess I'm going to just stop right there because I've already gone long enough, but I want you to think about some of the things that we've talked about here today, because it sure has been on my mind a lot here lately, because a lot of y'all are sending me some messages. A lot of you is putting your thoughts out there to me, saying you want me to talk a little bit more about this, and that's what I'm doing. I want to just be an encouragement to y'all. I'm not a doomsdayer. I'm not trying to say it's the end of the world. I'm just trying to say, think about what's going on around you, and ask yourself the question, what in the world is really going on? Is the day of our Lord approaching fast, or is it just another period in history? Thank you from Deep South Homestead.